The introduction to the Derech Hashem, the Hakdama, Rabbeinu Moshe Chaim Luzzatto, the Ramchal, he explains about organization and structure for every work or any work. He did this for his work of Derech Hashem. It's actually organized in a certain way. That's why it's very clear. He goes from one topic to the next, plus other things. But also in Halacha, Mishnah and Gemara, you can also structure and use his method of what he wrote in the Hakdama. Now, all this already you can find on the website concealedlight.com, where I have a video called Method of Learning, and it goes through what exactly that is that I learned from Rabbi Kessin, and I quote the Ramchal and the Hakdama in there. Just to give a few more points, after you saw that video, now I'll share with you a few more points about it. If you look in Parashat Mishpatim, in Shemot, it says, Ve'ele ha-mishpatim asher tasim lifneihem. These are the laws you shall place before them. Hashem is telling Moshe to place the laws before them. Now, he doesn't just say teach them, lelamedem. What do you mean you place them? You don't place laws in front of people. So again, Rashi says there in Asher Tasim Lifneihem, he says you might think to learn the Perek or the Halacha, Bet or Gimel Pe'amim 2 or 3 times, meaning to rack it in your brain by memorizing it. A few times you try and remember it, but that's not going to help you until it's Sidura B'fihem, until it's clear in your mouth. But that's not a good idea. But I won't bother. Lahavinam ta'amei hadavar uperusho. Rashi is saying, in case Moshe is going to say that I won't bother teaching them the reasons or the rationale, or I'll give you a better word in a second, and its understanding. Lechach, therefore, ne'emar asher tasim lefneihem. That's what it means to put it before them. Keshulchan aruch, like a set table. Meaning, learning is not just rattling off or parroting all the laws. You have to arrange it and systematize it in order to teach it effectively, which is, again, what the whole video and what the Ramchal explains how you're supposed to learn. Now, just as an English translation from the Stone edition, because I like what they wrote as an explanation for ta'ameh hadavar. So he says like this, Asher tasim lifneihem. Moshe was commanded to teach not only the laws, but their underlying principles and reasoning, so that the people would understand them fully and be able to apply them properly. So you see, the underlying principles is the ta'amim, meaning the reasons. And I'll give you some examples. Now, let's take Bishul as an example. We all know in Shabbat that we have one of the 39 forbidden activities, which is a creative act. That's what's forbidden, is Bishul. Now, Bishul is called cooking, but if you look in the Mishnah, they call it Ofeh. Ofeh is baking. Now, baking is just one way of cooking, because you can bake through air, you can broil through a fire, you can, right, you have frying is through oil, boiling is through water. Again, heat would be baking, meaning what you use. So Ofeh is really just an example. But the main category would be that which is an overall word, which includes all of them. And that's what the Ramchal actually says in Derech Hashem. I'll just read you this quick little thing here. He goes through the Hakdama, of course, but he says everyone should always know, like it says, Le'olam yihu, it should be in your hands, bi'adecha, kelalim velo piratim. it should be in your hands, the Torah, as general principles and not as details. So again, the Mishnah might give a detail, but it's up to us to try and find the general principle of it all, which then will contain all the other details. Just like Zoreya. Zoreya, planting, putting the seed in the ground, that's not really the forbidden activity. It's something that includes Zoreya plus other things. What's that word? So it's really called promoting growth. Promoting growth is what's forbidden. That's the underlying principle. Now, putting a seed in the ground, Zoreya, is one way of doing that. Just like baking, ofer, is one way of cooking, but you have other ways. Maybe taking some branches off a tree in order to let the other branches which are left be stronger, that promotes their growth. Now, it may be kotzer, cutting also, but it's still part of Zoreya. You see, who would ever think that that was Zoreya? And there's other examples. Anything that promotes growth would be, of course, plant growth, would be Zoreya. And then you can follow that with all the 39 milachot. Now, it would be nice if we had a word for all of them, like we made bishul. We don't really have a word for all of them as the real word. Some of them the rabbis played with and they gave us an overall word. But, if you try and figure it out on your own, Bezat Hashem, you can do that. So now another quick example about bishul. If you take a sentence, which is a definition, the definition will help you to make the structure, because that's really where it comes out of. For instance, if you say cooking, the definition is to change an object through heat. That's it. Now, we want to analyze each part of that definition. To change, there's different changes, A, B, C, under it. Then you want to say an object. Object has many things about it. And then through heat. Heat and heat sources has many things about it. So you want to arrange all your halachot under each category. Don't just give me 30 halachot in a pile to remember. Show it to me in a structure and in this organized way. Everything under its ta'am, its principle. Which means Rashi said two things. The ta'amim and the Shulchan Aruch. It means you want a principle structure. So first you have to have the principles, then you want to make a structure out of those principles. And here's what I'm talking about. If we say to change an object through heat, so now you have change. Let's see what kind of change we're talking about. Now, cooking, we know, it's all about taking a piece of meat, let's say, and making it cooked, which means what did you do? What was the change that you did? You made it edible. So edibility. Edibility is the change. However, what if I told you can't cook a carrot? So now we're left not knowing what to do with that halacha because it's already edible. I'm not changing something to become edible. It's already edible. So it doesn't fit now in that category of edibility. So we need a new category. So we're going to say in changing an object, change. Edibility is one change, that's A. Now we have to figure out a word for the vegetable, which we're going to make B. So when you make a carrot or something softer and not as hard as it was when it was raw, so we'll call it texture change. You see? So now texture becomes a type of change. So we have two changes under that phrase. So when you say to change an item, or an object, now you have edibility is one, texture is two, and what about now water? You can't heat up water on Shabbat. It didn't make it edible, and it didn't change any texture. It's the same liquid. So now we got to figure out and call that something. You see, the halachot, they force you to make a category under them until everything is neatly arranged under its principle. You see, these are principle words: edibility, texture, and the next one would be temperature. The example would be the meat, the vegetable, and the water. You see, so ta'ameh ha-mitzvot, the reason are really these words, and you need it to be like a Shulchan Aruch. You don't just throw them all over the place either. You have to have them neatly arranged, again, like I said, under the definition, which is really how you do that. So now changing an item, we have a feel for it. There's 1, 2, 3 ways of changing. Now when you get to object, you want to play with that one. And you want to see there's different types of object. Like there's a tea or an egg, which is kaleh habishul, which is an object which is a light and easily cooked. And then you have the heat source, which is you can't change an object through heat. And that means maybe heat is the sun, maybe heat is the kli rishon or kli sheni. And all those laws would fit into there. And so you neatly have all your laws under the definition. Now I just want to show here the Likutei Maharan, what it says. It says here in Ve'ele HaMishpatim, which is Zion 7, Torah 7, it says, this is a bechina of ish ve'isha, which is man and woman, meaning coming together, hitchaberut, of being together, and this is about emet ve'emunah, because emet and emunah, we say them together in the tefillah, like we know. Now he says, Rabbeinu Zal, asher tasim lefnehem, he says, ubazeh talui ha'geula. In this, the whole geula is dependent on, meaning to have everything structured in this way. And he says, Yachol sheyu hatalmidim lomdim ve'en mevinim. Maybe we're all going to learn and not understand, but he says, Talmud lomar orchem lefnehem keshulchan aruch. You should make it again like a set table. Ze bechinat ha'geula shele'atid yitgalu kol ha'chochmot keshulchan aruch. And in the end of time, when Mashiach comes, all the subjects, the chokhmot, will be like a Shulchan Aruch. That's why Rabbi Kessin is very strong on this. He knows this is something which will lead to the Geula, and is actually partly messianic in its own right. Like Rabbeinu Zal pulls out the pasuk of Yeshayahu, Umale'ah ha'aretz de'ah et Hashem. Means the land will be filled with the knowledge of God, which is the pasuk that shows us that's the time of Mashiach. So when people are going to start to make their learning like a Shulchan Aruch, like we did in the video, all the Torah, the whole Talmud and everything we have, and all the Chokhmot, even secular Chokhmot, all can be arranged in that way. It's just a way of thinking and a way of understanding. That will be a time where there's a lot of knowledge in the world, which is going to be a time of Geula. And he says this is Bechinat Nisim, of miracles. And again, he talked about Ish v'Isha, which are like a zivug in a way. You know, we have to be attached to the learning in such a way where it becomes like our zivug, which is like what Kiddushin is all about, Masechet Kiddushin, about taking a wife and becoming one with her. So when we have our Geula, of course, this will be a way where we will have our zivug with HaKadosh Baruch Hu.